I think we have two main problems. The first one is that the 27 member states are not, how to say, uniform in their evaluation and their strategies. And of course, national fragmentation does not help Europe to act like a continent. From the industrial point of view, I mean, I think you can compare the procurement in defense done by Europe with the one done by United States. I think we are around one half of the value of procurement of the United States per year. But in the European case, you have to allocate that amount of money, which is huge, hundreds of billions, on at least 30 different platforms. Every country, every big member state wants to develop its own aircraft, its own truck, its own gun, its own weapon. And of course, this fragmentation in investment doesn't make technology to be really competitive. If you see in the United States, they invest more, but they have a dozen of platforms, and so the investment per platform is much higher, and so the technology is very likely much better.
Roberto, I just spoke to Dimitri Kuleba yesterday. He says the US isn't going to defend Europe and we've got to get really, really serious about our defence. Do you think the shoe is dropping across European governments?
Well, as I said, I think Europe is called to make a decision at the moment. Either we act like a continent, or if we want to continue to act like 27 independent states, and with an umbrella of regulation and over-regulation, we don't go far. It's a matter of responsibility. Now we have to make our own choices. The big companies have the social responsibility to create alliances and to favor states to collaborate more efficiently than in the past.
What about the conversations you have with the Italian government? Roberto, you know a lot about the Italian government. You were part of one as well. They're nowhere near 2% as well still, despite this existential threat that Western Europe faces. Why the reluctance to spend money?
Well, there's a cultural, first of all, there's a cultural attitude, and second, budget constraints. However, the good thing now is that Europe seems to be favorable in removing the defense expenditure from the Stability Act. That means that this will not contribute to the yearly deficit, to the yearly debt. So that actually makes available quite an amount of money for further investment. And I think this is very important to make the country and the entire continent safer.
Roberto, the Eurozone usually only steps up during a crisis. Is this a crisis that calls for joint borrowing?
This is a crisis that lasts since 3 years. I'm still convinced, as a European citizen, as a technical person, and as an industrialist, as a manager, that we cannot accept a country to invade another country in the 21st century. I mean, this is really middle-age approach, and I don't think it's acceptable anymore. We didn't learn anything from the Second World War. I can't believe this. Having said this, it's time that Europe makes a clear analysis of what we have to do. I think we have to behave like a continent. We need common finance, common army. The important things have to be shared. Otherwise, we are not a continent. So I think it's a crucial moment that comes after a big crisis.
Yeah, and Roberto, I think I know the answer from what you've just said, but look, there are voices that believe now, including the one I spoke to yesterday, that we can't rely on the US for NATO support via Article 5 as well, and we can't necessarily rely on US weaponry as well. Do you think that Europe, over the next 3 years, which are crucial years, according to many commentators, can build up aggressively enough its own defence procurement, its own defence manufacturing, rather than relying on US product?
So let's say so. I think the capability in technology and the industrial capability of Europe is good. It's good enough to create a serious, robust defense system for Europe. The point is that the NATO alliance, the Atlantic umbrella, is very important, and we have to be a solid, reliable, and strong partners within the NATO umbrella. It is true that we cannot rely on the American weaponry, and we cannot rely only on the NATO, on the American defense. On the other hand, I think America needs a strong Europe, well organized, and as I said, a reliable partnership within the NATO alliance. We need each other. In the end of the day, if you count Europe and United States, we are less than 1 billion people. The rest of the world is much bigger.
Donald Trump says there's a great big ocean between Europe and the United States, which I think he thinks is a defence. So Donald Trump's wrong.
I don't know. I mean, I believe that this is the beginning for the Donald Trump administration. Let's see how things will develop. Maybe judging now is too early. You know, this is just a sort of a beginning of the negotiation. Maybe we should not rely on what we hear in these days. Let's see in 1 or 2 months what will happen. I think it's too early to express any judgment about the politics that Donald Trump is doing around the world.